Hello.
Hello?
Yeah. Can you see, sir?
Yes, yes.
Yes. So I have made some furnitures like this wardrobe and sofa and table, and I have used move plus copy
Copy. Okay.
array and
Very good.
this rotate array.
Very
And
good.
I make like if we go, I make the group of the sofa. If we
Hmm.
go in the sofa and you can see in outliner
Hmm.
that sofa cushion is in component
Very
because
good.
we'll use it twice or thrice or so that's
Right.
why I made it
Correct.
component.
Correct.
And then this table. So I
Hmm.
made this table as a component. First I made a group and
Hmm.
then made this table as a component. So
Hmm.
whatever I'll change in this component, table will change automatically all this table.
Yes, but all the individual legs are, I guess, they are individual groups.
Yeah.
So if they are repeating and you don't want four different types of legs, then you can go with a single component for the legs as well.
Okay. I'll do that, sir.
Okay.
For this also wardrobe also I make one component.
Hmm.
Sorry, group.
Okay.
And then this different like panels I have make one group.
Very
Then
good.
top I have make one group, and then shelf I make one component and then copy it.
Very good. Okay. So that's repeating, right?
So I use rotate array as well for the sofa also. So this
Mhm.
much I have done.
Okay, very good. I guess you got a very good understanding about organizing it into groups and components.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Okay, sure. Good work.
Thank you.
Vibhavari, you asked me a doubt regarding the chair, the legs of those chair.
I was trying to, I made one component and then I copied the component with the
Okay.
control key. But
Hmm.
then when I try to change the leg of the this thing stool, it was
Yes.
getting changed. So I don't know why, because I had created a component.
Yes, I understood why it was happening. Can you go to that particular object where you created it as a
Yes.
component?
Yes.
I think it's the other stool over there on the left. This is the one, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. You have what you have done here is that you have created a component, but you have created the copies of the objects inside the component. That means you have copied the lines and the faces inside the component and not
Okay.
the copied the component as a whole. So
Okay.
can you go inside one step inside the component?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Is this correct?
Yes. Now can you do a selection of one of the legs? Now you can see that you have not copied the legs, but instead you have copied the components of the leg
Okay. Okay.
four
Okay.
times. Okay, so what you have to do here is delete all the three legs,
I have to select all the three legs
select all the three legs.
or
Go
the.
yes, go inside the group, go inside the component. Yes, now select three legs, three of
Correct?
yes, but it's better to triple click and select because the face on the top might be left out if you do a
Okay.
selection like that.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so go inside the group and triple click, delete it,
I'll delete.
delete, and repeat this for the other two legs.
This one also?
This one also. Okay, now close the group, go click somewhere outside. Okay, now select the component, and this time not double clicking, but just select it.
Okay.
Just click it once. Okay, now you have selected the component and not
Okay.
the parts of the components, right? Now make a
Okay.
copy of that by using the move tool. Try using the shortcut M.
No,
Click
why?
on the control key once. Pick the point on the top. You are picking the right point. Yes. Now you are creating copies. Now select both the objects, both
Okay.
the
No, now this I have to select this one also, no?
yes. Now pick a point for the reference with the move tool. No, I think you are clicking and dragging it. No. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
I got it. I have to just click, not hold it, not hold the control key, right?
Not hold the control key. Just click on the control key once.
Yeah.
And you also don't need to click and drag. You just need to click once and click second time to end the command.
Okay, sure. Okay.
Now on the outliner also you'll see.
Yeah, I can see that.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes, Naina.
Yeah, sir, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see it.
So I had the doubt that I can't offset. I can't make offset on this surface now, this face now.
Yes.
Since I have used this follow me tool here to make it curve here.
Right.
So if I want to make a box here again, so it can't be used. Like it can't use this tool follow me. Sorry, offset.
Offset. You can do that. For that, you just need to go inside the group. Go inside. Go to view. Now turn on the hidden geometry. Okay. Now since you have got the hidden geometries turned on, now you will be able to select individual faces and not the softened faces. And since you have the individual faces selected, you can offset it now.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Sure. So I can see that you have done created a sofa.
Yeah.
And it seems you have also structured it properly.
Yeah, these are the layers. Components and groups.
Very good. Okay. Good work. Okay. Shailendra has created this bed. Very good. Let me see how everything is organized. You have the chair, and within the chair you have the 4 legs and the groups. Okay. The groups are for the cushion and the backrest, right? So you can rename them as cushion or the seat and the backrest. And within the bed also you have 6 legs, the mattress. Okay. Very good, Shailendra. Okay, today we will cover more of groups and components and few new things as well. Let's start with making a group component first. Let's say we have component like this. I will create this as a component. Make component. In this component window, first we have the definition name, then the description. Glue to is how we want to place it. It sometimes are helpful when we create windows and anything within our 3D model. Now these attributes are relatively new, so you might not have them if you are using SketchUp an older version, say for example 2014 or so. Now these are helpful in case you are creating estimates or say schedules at a later stage, but they are not mandatory in case you are not dealing with such kind of things, such kind of schedules and all. And this is again advanced option, especially for identifying, defining these things as a particular geometry. Again, these are all features if we want to synchronize it with other BIM softwares. Other BIM softwares, then we need to define them. Like if we create a particular cuboid and if we define it as a wall, then other BIM softwares will be able to understand that it is defined as a wall. So if you are working with other BIM softwares, then you can use these particular parameters. Description is just the description of that particular component. Now I will explain the glue to option as well as face camera option in a moment. Now, I had mentioned you that you need to turn this on, and sometimes you will see that this option is not on by default, and I'll show you an example of when this thing happens. Let's say if I create a rectangular face here which is connected to an individual geometry, and if I select this and if I try to make a component here, it got selected by default again. Create group. Sometimes it will not be selected. I don't know why it got selected. Sometimes when you are dealing with faces that are connected with other geometry, then it will not be selected. So sometimes you might keep on wondering why whenever you try to create a component, you are not able to create a component. So if this is not on, every time you create a component, you may go on creating this into a component, but this particular instance will not be created as a component. So for that, make sure this is on. Okay, only then you will get the object you are trying to create as a component. Okay, and next option is always face camera. So that means if you notice the default component which we get when we turn on SketchUp, it always face camera, right? So it will always face the direction where no matter how you orbit it. So for that, you can create your own kind of face me object. Now these objects are called face me components. So for that, I'll be using, let me create a basic, say very elementary tree. Let's call this a tree. Let me reverse the face, and let's if this is a tree, and if I want to create this as a face me component, now it is not facing the camera, right? So I will just click on the make component option, and I will turn this particular option on, always face camera, and create it. And thus you can see that it is now facing the camera no matter how we orbit, right? Now you might be noticing that it is facing the camera, but it is orbiting from this particular point. If I rotate my camera, it is orbiting from this particular camera option. That's because if I edit the component, you can see that the axis of that particular component is located here. Now I can change the axis. I can place it at the center of the component and click outside. It will ask me, do you want to update the axis? I'll say yes. Now you'll see that it will start orbiting from the center. Now axis has got a lot of functions. I mean, it's not the only way why we place our axis inside a component. We will deal with them properly, but for now, if we are creating face me components, then make sure you place the axis at a proper location where along which you want the object to orbit or rotate. Now in case I place it somewhere here, let's say I have placed it like this, and close it, update it, save the axis. Now we'll notice that it will orbit, it will face the camera, but the center is now somewhere outside the object, right? So sometimes if you create the face me component, the axis might not be located where you want it to be. So in that case, you need to update it properly. Now axes are important for not only for face me components but also for other objects. By default, it will place the axis somewhere close to the original axis. Okay, and at the extreme corner of the object. Now we can move them, we can reorient these axes, but for now let's just understand the very idea of having an axis, individual axis for each and every component or each and every group. Now this is a group, this component has got the axis here. Now this particular component will also have its individual axis located somewhere here, right? So every object or every group or a component will have its own axis. Okay, now let me show you what I meant by the glue option. Let me just create a shape. I'm using the push pull by clicking Control key, and I will be creating a shape something like this. Okay, so let me create for example something like a rectangle, and I will convert this into a component. Now for your understanding, I am using right click and make component. From once you get used to it, I'll be using shortcuts. If you remember, the shortcut is G. Let's call this a window, and now we have a separate option saying cut opening. We'll focus this later. Now we can have glued, we can have this particular component glued to some of the surfaces. Like let's select glue to any. Okay, and I will create this one. Now if I place the component, let's say if I try to place a component from my component window. Now this is the first time we are introducing the component window, and I guess this is the window, right? So if I click here and try to place it somewhere, and you will notice that it will automatically glue to any of the face. Now, and click here. I can pick from here and place it anywhere I want. Now in that case, I could have gone and edited further. Let's say I will edit this one. I will punch a hole within this, and the same thing will happen if I place our component here. Now it's a very quick way to create windows at any angle like this. So you can place objects. You can place objects glued to a particular face if you turn this option on. That means in case of creating a component, if you turn this option on. Now since we had turned cut opening on, that's why we got the opening created as soon as we placed our new window. Okay, so if I don't select that option, so let's say if I create an opening, if I delete this, and if I make this into a component, and if I don't turn this on, and now I create this, and you can see that it did not get connected with the face. And even if I create new components, it will not create or punch in the opening which we had in the first place. For that, we need to turn on the cut opening option. Now this can only happen if we are placing it on faces. If I try to place it on components like this, then it will not work It will not punch in the opening. That's because objects that are not within the same level or within the same group or component level, they do not interact with each other. Like we know that if I create a line here or a rectangle here, this line will interact with the particular with the rest of the objects. That means it becomes sticky, and if we have seen that it will, if I try to move, it will get interacted. Now in case of a component, if I have two different components here, this component has got their own let's say their own universe within them. So this component will not interact with rest of the universe, but it will only interact what are inside that particular component. So in that way, this is not interacting with this object, right? So you need to understand that if we want to interact an object with an external object, that must be done within the group or a component, unless we are dealing with other options, of course. Now, in order to create this particular opening, we need to go inside and then place it here at the face level. Okay, so we have created glued object, we have created opening, cut opening, face, that component, a face me component, and we have also seen how we can name them and define these things. How to set cut opening. Okay, how to set cut opening. If we create a component on a face, let's say I am creating this component. Let's define this a little bit more. We have this opening, and I can delete this face, right? So we have sort of a window here. Now I can make these edges and faces, which are only these edges. Now these edges, in these edges we have an opening, right? We have an opening in these edges. So I can, if I delete, then it would be void. Yes, it would be void. So since we have created a void, that void information will also be stored in the component. W1. Now we need to turn this cut opening option on and then create our window. Okay. Now,
sorry. So if we are making this void, then later on we need to add windows as a separate component.
Yes, we can do that, but we will create windows in a different way, because we are not dealing with walls at the moment. We are just dealing with faces.
Okay.
Right. So if you want to create a quick, just a volumetric study of your, say, mass of the building, then you can quickly create these kind of openings. Okay. But if you want, you can create further details later on. Like first, let's create the voids. We can go on copying them. We can add the windows on any level. As you can see that we can create it on, glue it to any axis and then place them here. And later on, if you want, you can modify this component. And as we know that if we modify a component, then all rest of the objects will also get modified, right? So if I try to create a window, let's say if I try to create a window panels here in this particular object, I can do that. Let's offset it and let's give this a material. We'll cover the material part later. And let's say we have a frame. So now since we modified this, all of our component will get modified. You can quickly create just the mass of your building with this particular option of components. Okay, next we have covered the axis also. Next we will deal with guides and reference objects. Like we have the tape measure tool here. The shortcut is T for tape measure tool. If I type T, we get the tape measure tool. Now, tape measure tool can be used to measure a dimension. Like we can see that it's 2679 millimeters. Now I can also use the tape measure tool to draw guides. Like if I pick the tape measure tool from a corner or from a point, then I can draw a guide just like this. Now if I draw a line from the corner, that is, now if I try to offset this, like if I pick any point on the line, not the edge corner point, if I pick a point on the line, then I can draw an offset and I can draw a guideline. Now if I type in, say, let's say 500, you will see that we have a guide which will lead to infinity at an offset of 500 from this particular line. Now I can similarly draw 1500, and as always we can change the dimension anytime. I can type in 100 or 500 as long as we are within the same command. Now guides are really helpful. Let's say if I want to place windows with the same sill level, let's say sill level is 600 and lintel is 2100. It's way too much for the block, but you understand that in that way we can quickly make use of those guidelines and then do the modeling. And also, in case you don't want to create guides, you just want to take measurements, you can just click on the control key once and then you can just measure the distance from one point to the other and it will not draw a line or a guide. If you don't see the plus icon, then it will not create a guide. So that means if I click control once, you don't see the plus or the line, guideline, that means we are only measuring it. We are only measuring the dimension. Okay. So now it will create a guide. So guides will be very handy for us when we start creating our objects. Next, we have the protractor. The protractor will also create guides, but those guides will be at an angle, at any angle. That is, let's say we want a guide at an angle of say 45 degree. Type in 45. We have a guide at 45 degree, and we can again pick any point by typing the arrow keys. Let's say we want a guide at an angle of from here at an angle of, let's say, $12, and from here again on the other side, let's say it's again $12. And we have the angle from here at 12° on either sides. So that's how we create guides and use the protractor to draw guides at angles. These two are for measurements, again for showing the dimensions. The dimensions will be with the same unit which you are working with, and you can also modify them on the preferences on the model info window. You can pick the points and you can type in the dimension. Now dimensions will always face the camera if you want it to. Let's change how we want to show the dimensions by going to window, model info, and under dimensions we have the font, the color. If you want to change the color, you can do that here. And if you want to show them as slash, dot, arrow, or anyhow, and do you want to change the alignment to the screen, like for now it's facing the camera, but if you don't want to face the camera, then you can do that as well. And if you want to have it centered, it will be centered and along the dimensions. And you can update all the dimensions at once. Select all and update selected dimensions, and I can close it. Now you can see the color got changed, and it will always be aligned to that particular dimension line as we want it to, right? So these dimensions are only for preferences, and we are not going to use these dimensions in our drawings. We will be using dimensions in layout when we start layout. And next is text option. The text option will be helpful at many occasions, like if you want to point something, or if you just want to pick up an area. Let's say we want the area of this particular face very quickly, then we can just select this and we can modify it until we get, if we want to change it, it should have been modified automatically. Okay, I don't know why it didn't get modified automatically. I thought this will be dynamic, but this is not, it seems. Now we have 3D text. We can type in any text at any font and then place it anywhere. We are not going to deal with these in detail, just for your understanding that we have such options in SketchUp. Now we have already covered the navigations, and we have covered these navigations. We will cover the walk when we deal with spaces, and sections will also cover later on. For now, we will deal with components and groups only. So if creating components and different ways of creating components are clear, then I'll move on to details about the axis. That is modifying the axis and using it to our advantage. Is it clear, everyone? All of these and the way we created the face me component and cut openings and also glued objects, glued components. Okay, let me quickly show you how if our object, our workspace have got a lot of guides, then we can either select everything and delete those guides. But the best way to do is go to edit and then delete guides, and all the guides will be deleted at once. So all the guides that are in your drawing, no matter where they are located, they will be deleted. So that's a very quick way to clean up your model. Okay, so let's start with the axis. Now by default, SketchUp axis is located here. That is the origin of our entire model is located here. Now as we have seen that each and every object, each and every component will have their own origin or the axis, and this axis can be modified and can be moved. Let's modify the axis of the entire model. Let's place it somewhere, let's say randomly somewhere here, And for that, first I'll pick the center. Then I'll give the direction of the red axis and the direction of the green axis. And blue axis will be automatically picked. Now we have changed the origin of our model. Now we can also change the axis by placing it at a different angle. Let's say we want to place it at an angle of 45 degree. Now let's start with drawing a line, drawing a guideline at 45 degree, 45, enter. Now we have this, let's have our axis at 45 degree in this axis direction. I should have drawn another line, the protractor. From here, another 45 degree. Okay, now we have both the sides. We place the center here. Red axis will be along this, and green axis will be along here, and thus we have changed the axis. Now you might be wondering, why do we want to change the axis? Let's clear the guides. That's because we don't always work at an angle of, let's say, 90 degrees. We sometimes need to create rectangles at these kind of angles. So if you try to create rectangles on the other axis, then it might be very irritating every time you want to create, let's say, a rectangle or lines. And if you're working with the location of the axis, then along the axis we can make our rectangles or make our objects much more easily. That's why it's better to change the axis if you're dealing with more than one direction or one orientation of your object. Let's say sometimes we have our plan oriented like this, and part of the plan is oriented at 45 degrees, right? So you will be working here as well as you will be working on this part of the plan, right? So for that, we can change the plan, we can change the axis, and it will be very much convenient if I start working like this. If the axis is oriented properly, I can go on picking points and using the references as per our requirements, right? But if I try to draw lines or rectangles for this particular axis, we won't be able to do that. We can, but every time we have to draw and then rotate it. But the best way to do and to speed up our process, we can change the axis orientation, and now we can create our rectangles or any shape we want in a much faster way. So that's all from my side. I will show you more functions of the axis as well as the tape tool tomorrow session. But for now, just understand these basic tools and understanding of the.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm simultaneously practicing whatever you're teaching.
Okay.
So, what I'm saying, I'm able to change the axis orientation, but where to specify the angle if I require a particular angle?
For that, you need a reference. It might be an object or
the first line.
Yes, you need to have a reference. Let's say if I let's say the axis to be placed at 60 degree. So I will draw a reference for at 60 degree, and the other one will be at 30 degree. So we need to have the two dimensions or two directions for the edges or the axis defined first, and then you can place it and define them.
Okay, but we can't specify the angle directly.
directly from the axis tool, we can't. Or you can draw a rectangle and then rotate it accordingly.
Okay.
Let's say at 45. Yes, and then place it.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, I was wondering.
Sir,
Yes.
I have a doubt.
Yes.
Now, if I want to make some diagonal lines on the vertical plane, then how can I change axis if I want to play with diagonal lines in a vertical plane?
Diagonal lines in a vertical plane.
On a vertical plane, yes.
Okay, so you can use make use of the guides.
Okay.
You're talking if we want the diagonal lines like this, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, for that you can make use of the guides. If I use the protractor and draw a line from here, and let's say we want the lines at 60 degree, right? Or let's say 45 degree. Okay, so you want these kind of lines, right?
Yeah.
So you can have lines like these, or you can reorient your axis if you want to, but changing the axis along the, that means other than the one you already using, that means changing the base of the axis might be very difficult, and you might face some difficulties with that. So it's best to have the red and the three axis oriented, red and the green axis oriented at a horizontal plane, so that you can work on a better way. Okay. And if you make such changes, make sure you reverse it as soon as you are done with it.
Okay.
Okay. So in order to reverse the changes you have done with the axis, right click on any of the axis and reset it. Then everything will be back to normal. Okay.
Okay.
And in case you download an object from a library, and if you see that it is not oriented properly, make sure you right click on one of the axes and see whether you are able to reset it or not. If the reset is grayed out, it means that the origin is properly located at the very origin of the SketchUp file. Okay, so you can change the axis even in the vertical angle or vertical face, but make sure you reset it as soon as you are done with it. Otherwise, you may get some unwanted results. Keep working, keep practicing, and if you have any doubt, do let me know. I'll just close the session in a moment. I'm just trying to create something. Just for fun, let's create a vase using the follow me tool. We have covered follow me properly, but still many of you are facing issues with it. So I just wanted to show that how that you can create objects if you are clear with what cross section you want. Let me create the path. This was the shape. We have a path. I'll increase the number of segments to 36. Path and follow me, and thus we have a vase. Okay, by the way, I would like to ask you whether you created your shortcuts for group and hide objects as well as reverse faces. Please do so, otherwise we'll be slowing down while we move ahead. And make sure you don't make use of any of these icons. You don't click them. You try to remember the shortcuts and use the shortcuts. L for line, R for rectangle, C for circle, M for move, P for push pull, Q for rotate, S for scale, F for offset, try to memorize them. I will provide a sheet where you will get all the default shortcuts, which will help you to memorize, but it will come with practice only. So try to practice it without clicking the tools from here, and use the keyboard. And I would like to see your works in tomorrow's session, and tomorrow we will start working on our first real object, like starting from a bed to a room. We will create it within the class using the tools we had covered till now. So thank you everyone. I'll see you all tomorrow at 6:15.